Hey buddies, Potato McWhiskey here and welcome to an update video on Millennia. Today we're going to be talking about how the game has changed since launch, what the game is promising to do in the future, and where I think it needs to go. So on Monday, May the 27th, the developers posted the update 3 to the Steam news page. They posted a link that had a 2024 roadmap. Update 1 contained a whole host of changes and things that we'll talk about a little bit. Update 2 had a few changes that modified the game slightly. Then update 3, which is what we're talking about today, has a few things in as well. And they go into what's going to be coming down the road in the future, stuff like game speed settings, challenge mode, new maps. In quarter 3 of 2024, we're looking at nomad starts, new maps, new nations, new game start options. And in quarter 4, alongside the Atomic Ambitions DLC, we're going to be looking at Steamworks mod support and the strategic warfare system. Now, caveat, I want to zoom in on the bottom of that roadmap right there and say this roadmap will be constantly updated throughout the year, so don't take this video as gospel. The information contained herein is just a guideline. The only thing you should really be paying attention to is the DLC and the actual update that's out. So feature changes here. They added a restart option to the escape menu. This will relaunch the game with the same settings but a new map seed. I would commend the developers for implementing this. This is in Civilization 6 and it is often used to roll for the God start. It's very fun. I've used the restart button myself a few times on live stream and stuff like that. I generally try to avoid restarting unless I'm playing specifically for fun. I like to play Civ as, it kind of depends on the mood, right? Like if I'm playing a game like Civ, I'll play it for fun sometimes I want to challenge myself. Really, I just kind of go about what the mood strikes me as. This is only a positive feature. Awesome, nice quality of life, improves the game slightly. They also implemented a game rules system. Much like restart options, the ability to set game rules is a frequent request. So we'll have a little bit of an investigation there of what kind of game rules are available as the game continues to get developed. But the 3 available options right now are Barbarian Presence, Barbarian Hostility, and Barbarian Strength. They've also added a new map that is called Ring. This map generates a ring-shaped continent with a large center area C. This will be quite a fun map because effectively there is a central ocean to fight over and then a sort of outside ocean to fight over with like land. It's kind of like a weird Pangea. I quite like it. It's a cool map type. Big fan of that. Looking forward to playing around with it and experimenting with what the map generator spits out. More map types can only be a good thing. And I really hope that they expose the code that is used to generate these kind of maps so that more interesting map generation rules can be implemented. Like what if there was a, I don't know, like a Europe themed map generator that didn't specifically exactly create Europe, but created something that looked a little bit like Europe. I think that'd be pretty cool. A new nation has been added, Nigeria. Doesn't talk about their bonuses. There has been an on-map raised improvement indicator, which, much like improvement upgrades, it appears if one of your improvements has been raised and allows easy repair of the improvement. This is a really nice quality of life feature. It might get annoying if an improvement you don't care about was raised, but at the very least, anything in a game that reduces the number of clicks that is required to achieve your goal without reducing the decision-making complexity of the game can only be a good thing. We're going to see some new balance changes coming up as well with things like the pay homage innovation, adding government experience into farming towns. That's actually huge. Before, the +4 wealth to farming towns was like an easy skip because it was pretty bad. But now, having to choose between money and a government experience per turn, that's going to make farming towns a lot more competitive with the other types. We've got some unit health adjustments with the catapult bireme and the bomb vessel winning out with up to 100 HP, while the galleon is going down to 50. I'm also happy to see the voltaic pile from, I think it is the Inventor National Spirit. It's hard to remember all the mechanics in the game. It's getting buffed. It's basically being doubled in its power. It'll give you baseline 2 power, and when you work, it'll give you another 2 power. So it's going from a total of 2 power to 4, which is really nice. It could really use that because pretty much the second you get out of that era, you basically want to delete it and replace it, but this will make it much more competitive. We're also seeing the mercenary unit. I forget which national spirit this comes from, but it is getting buffed significantly with 5 extra attack, 3 extra defense, and they spawn at maximum veterancy level, giving them a 50% baseline veterancy boost. Their morale is increasing, meaning they're much harder to rout, meaning they'll keep fighting, and they're no longer ranged. Instead, it is outside the normal rock, paper, shotgun rules, and kind of is a very generalist unit and has no combat bonuses that I can tell. It's just meant to be a strong general unit. It's a good mercenary, and you can see similar buffs being applied to the privateer with a massive 8 extra attack, spawning at maximum veterancy level, increased to its morale, and it is no longer a line unit. It is also outside of the normal rock, paper, scissors unit relationships. The Old Guard Grenadier has been nerfed, as has the Old Guard Cavalry. I don't think a lot of these changes are going to be massively impactful to the game. I think the biggest impactful changes here are the Privateer and Mercenary changes. These are going to make these much more attractive units for offensive and defensive engagements. Having units that are strong in a very general case is a very, very powerful thing. I'm very happy to see this though. The knowledge value of exhibitions have been increased from 3 to 4, and they've removed one of the additional worker slots. The exhibition felt kind of strong and weak at the same time, in the sense that you could get up to 6 signs from it, but you had to commit a lot of workers to it. Now you can get 4 signs, but you only have to commit 1. I would see this as sort of a buff nerf. You nerf its potential, but you make it easier to achieve its potential. So it's just like a little bit of an adjustment. I think it's going to feel a little bit easier to play around with this. Jaguar unit promotion cost is set to 50 experience, regardless of the unit it's being promoted from. So that'll either make it expensive in some cases or more cheap in others. I don't know if that's going to make the Jaguar unit more attractive. I just don't think that's a particularly good civic, or it's not civic, at national spirit, sorry. We're also seeing some other, changes here. For example, subway capital buildings now give you specialists, and the power score value of towns is going from 10 to 15 per tower, and the power score value of population was from 10 to 8 per pop. This is going to make it a little bit easier to do diplomacy with the AI, because they tend to be more willing to treat with you if you're not a lot weaker than them. But it could go the inverse if they're doing a lot better than you. Now, when it comes to gameplay changes, using an Archangel laser will actually negatively affect your diplomatic relations with the targeted nation. I kind of like the idea of, the embassy in your nation, and they're just like, hey, what's up? How's it going? And then meanwhile, you're like in the meeting with their diplomat, like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, lovely. We can't wait to secure that trade deal. Hey, by the way, you're the diplomat from France, right? Okay, yeah, hold on. I gotta make a phone call here. Yeah, sorry, yeah, strike Paris. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Calais, Brittany, Nice. Do you need the launch codes? Okay, you got the launch codes? Okay, yeah, I want you to fire Archangel lasers all over France. Just absolutely eradicate that country. Totally. Yep. Thank you so much. Click. So now about that trade deal, Mr. Ambassador from France, it's like they just didn't seem to care. Amazing. We've also got the Lighthouse of Alexandria being added to the game. I'm pretty excited to see the wonders. A big change that I'm quite a fan of is that conquering a vassal would reset the integration there. So previously you might vassalize a miner, then you wait and you invest in integration until you can convert it, and then the enemy conquers it away from you, and because they liberate it or do whatever, that you have to reconquer it to take it back, and you get set back completely on integration. Now they've changed the game to where if you recapture a city fast enough, we don't know what the time scale is there, but if you recapture a city fast enough, the integration time is drastically reduced. So I'm a big fan of that. I like that. Little annoying things like that are really, really nice. Once your merchant or envoy is inside another player's region, you can deploy them there. You do not have to get adjacent to the city. Huge gameplay change here that I'm a big fan of, because sometimes it was difficult to actually get adjacent to the capital city with your merchants and envoys due to the enemy spamming out units or whatever reason, right? Maybe you didn't have a pathway. Big fan about that. Also, deployed merchants will now generate wealth for the host where they are deployed. 30% of what they gather. I think merchants gather, a decent amount of gold, so getting 30% of that is going to encourage trade between the players. We're seeing some adjustments to the AI as well. They're now better able to build super monuments, and the AI is a little bit more reasonable with their approach to knowledge-related culture powers like Eureka. We've got some really nice UI updates. So for example, unrest levels will now show you what the next unrest level is. I would also like to see what I need to bring it down to if my unrest is decreasing, what I need to bring it down to reduce the level of unrest. I like the idea of it responding and showing you this information dynamically. Like if unrest is increasing, I should know how long have I got until the situation gets worse. But if it's decreasing, I should also know how long I have until the situation is resolved. A big one here, and this has been a pain point for me playing the game, is alliances, knowing who is allied with who and getting that information. Now the tooltip when you're going to declare war or accept an alliance or use some sort of hostile ability will actually tell you your enemy's allies and who your allies are, so you can figure out the diplomatic situation a little bit easier without having to keep all that information in your head. So like, let's say you're expecting your ally, I don't know, the United Kingdom to come to battle with you, and you declare war, but you didn't realize that your alliance had lapsed for some reason. Now you'll be able to double check that before you actually click that declare war, accept alliance, or firing of a laser. There's a couple of small art updates as well. For example, there is new art for the Dark Forest landmark and the Tropical Rainforest landmark. Looking forward to finding those in game. There's also a game information panel in the escape menu, kind of like you have in Civilization 6. That will show you the map seed, the map type, and the game settings. I would also like to see this showing the difficulty that was selected, although I don't remember if that's globally selected in Millennia. I can't remember. I think do you set that individually per AI? It would be good if there was a global option for that and that it was shown there. This is just like whenever, because like oftentimes what would happen to me when I'm playing Civ 6 is someone's like, oh my god, you're not playing on deity, are you? This is dumb. And I have to press escape and hover over the deity thing and like, look dude, it is deity. We've got a huge host of bug fixes here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's enough bug fixes in here that should make the game feel a lot better to play. So what is my overall impression of update 1? Or sorry, update 3, which is the first update we're going to talk about today. I gotta say, I think it's a good start to the game, kind of moving forward into 2024. I was impressed with Millennia when it first came out, and I really enjoyed it. However, I am not afraid to say that the game has a lot of things it needs to work on in the future. I would say overall, this update pushes the game and its UI into the right direction. I'm not afraid to say that it feels a little bit like the game is, I wouldn't say the game feels like it's in early access, but I wouldn't tell someone that they were wrong to say that. It does definitely feel like the game had a lot of rough edges and needs a lot of work. But see, the reason why I don't want to say it's in early access or it wasn't ready to launch is because strategy games and games in general these days, they are genuinely, in my opinion, best developed with like in the hands of the community and the developers, right? I think early access and releasing games early into their life cycles and committing to continuously updating them is a really nice way to do game development. So I won't say the game felt a little undercooked, but I wouldn't disagree with someone if they did say that. What I would say is the game felt like a little bit of rough around the edges, and they're definitely starting to polish out those edges with this update. Now, I haven't covered any of the updates for this game, so I'm going to scuttle back to update 2 as well, so that we can kind of have a look at some of the highlights of that one. I'm a big fan of the fact that in update 2, they added additional indications for growing unrest. A little unhappy face appears underneath your cities when your unrest is growing. Big fan of that. They've also added an indicator that lets you know if there's an enemy unit inside your city with a little yellow exclamation mark. Little things like this are going to make the game a little easier to play. I'm a big fan. They also implemented a key remapping. Love that. Love being able to remap keys. I really, really enjoy customizing my controls in games to make my game easier to play. We also see the nation builder getting expanded with a few more options and the ability to get rid of your nations that you previously made. There's some big improvements to the improvement tooltip, so you can have a better idea of where you can build stuff. It'll tell you specifically the type of resources you can build it on and what they produce, which I'm a big fan of. They balanced out some things that I think were necessary. Outpost improvements have been limited to 3 per outpost. It was kind of crazy that you could crank out up to 6 monasteries from a well-placed outpost. That was a little crazy. I like the idea of limiting them to 3. I would maybe even go further than that, but I'm cool with that. And I want to highlight a couple of things that were a pain point for me from update 1 when I was, or from before update 1. Like, for example, you weren't able to destroy your vassals. Let's say the AI settled a random ass crappy vassal somewhere and you didn't want it there, so that you wanted to get rid of it. You could never raise it. Now you have the option to destroy your vassals. That came in update 1. They also added options for the combat viewer where you can say, do not show the combat viewer, have it as an alert, or always show it. Most people are probably going to turn that off immediately. And there's also checkboxes for being able to automatically skip combat emanations if you keep them on. The big change is that scaling costs are now capped to the maximum inventory amount, which is 400. So you can't scale the cost of a power beyond what you can actually store. And my impression here is, taking update 1, 2, and 3 with the highlights, with the changes, I think we're seeing Millennia move in the right direction. I think it's important to note that the game has mixed reviews on Steam at the moment. Now, I have opinions about what mixed means when it comes to Steam reviews. The idea that 65% of people like something and you call that mixed. If 2 out of 3 people like something, I would say that's a pretty positive response. I think though, because it involves money and stuff like that, I get where people are coming from. I think it's fair to say that people were reasonably disappointed by the game. People really like it because it does a lot of unique, new, and interesting stuff. And I think Millennia's review score can only go up if they keep working on it, if they keep developing it, if they keep pushing it in the direction that they need to, if they keep tweaking the graphics, keep tweaking the gameplay, keep tweaking the bugs, the UI. I think my prediction for Millennia is that Millennia is going to have a strong legacy. Millennia has had a great start out of the gate. Maybe a couple of little stumbles, a couple of blunders. It wasn't perfect, but I think it's off to a great start. And I think that the future, Millennia is heading towards a bright future. I wouldn't say that it has a bright future yet, but it is moving in a direction where I would feel confident in saying there could be a really cool game here that we'll still be playing 20 years from now. The kind of like, I'm not going to put it on the same tier as Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri, but it has the potential to be something in that direction. You know what I mean? This could be something memorable, something changing. People will be talking about, man, I wish we had more games like Millennia 10 years from now. And I think that is something that is definitely on the cards for Millennia. I don't know if it's there yet. How confident am I in the developers? I think my confidence level in the developers based on the launch build was kind of in a midpoint. Call it 50 out of 100. Okay, with each successive update, my confidence level in them has gone up by about 5%. So now I would say that I'm at like 69% confidence in the developers here. But let me know what you think. What disappointed you about Millennia? What would you like to see for the future of Millennia? Go ahead and leave a comment here because I got to talk about what I want to see from the future of Millennia. And I think there are two really big key things that Millennia needs moving into the future. The big, expensive, and difficult one is going to be grappling with the UI problems and how the game looks. Because the gameplay is fantastic. Love the gameplay of Millennia, but man, I feel like the UI and the graphics fight me, and I feel like the game is just... Look, I hate to use this word, okay? But Millennia is an ugly game by the 2024 standards. Now, by 4X game standards, Millennia is pretty darn good. 4X games have, particularly indie 4X games, and before anyone tries to fight me on how could you call Paradox indie, listen dude, Paradox published the game. The developer, in my opinion, still errs in the direction of indie, okay? Paradox Development is not an independent studio. Like, we wouldn't call it indie, but I would call this kind of in the direction of an indie 4X, right? It didn't have the same kind of budget that Humankind or Civilization had, but it wasn't, it's kind of, it's a mid-grade 4X game. And as mid-grade 4X games go, I would say this is an okay-looking game. Most 4X games are absolutely ugly, right? That's the reality of the situation. They're just ugly. And compared to a standard game, Millennia is ugly, but compared to most 4X games, Millennia is okay. It's fine. I think they just need to work on how the graphics feel. Like, trees are too big, they're big, chaotic. I don't like the little circles that show tiles being worked. There's a lot of stuff going on in the game that needs adjustment. And so hopefully we can see that come to fruition in the not too distant future. But yeah, I really do think that the key thing that Millennia needs to work on is the graphics, right? And the UI and making the game look and feel a little bit better. The second thing is the gameplay. The gameplay is fantastic and they need to tighten up the numbers. They need to make things feel good. And even bigger than that, they need to implement more gameplay styles. They need to implement more. Really what Millennia should be is like a feast, a buffet of options. You give the players so many options that they don't even know what to do with, right? Let's say you go into an alternate era that unlocks a national spirit that you can only get in that era. Like if you go into an Age of Blood, you should give players the option, like there should be 3 options, 3 special national spirits that are in the Age of Blood maybe, or something like that, right? Or maybe a special government type that's only available in the Age of Blood. Because you go national spirit, government, like back and forth like that. What if, like that's the thing I think that's going to make Millennia stand out, is making the game a gameplay feast. Making it a feast for the eyes and the brain and the soul, and being a narrative storytelling engine, an alt history narrative engine. I think that's going to be the key thing, and I think that is where the developers are strong. I think where they're weak is going to be on the graphics and the UI and stuff, but they are working on it. I will give them credit. But yeah, I'm excited for the future of Millennia, and so I want to hear what you have to say about it. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.